Hey, it's Frank here with Frank's DIY and Homeowner Help, and today we are going to do this. We are going to get this lawnmower up and running. So this is a Murray 20-inch with the 3.5 Briggs & Stratton horsepower engine. And the story behind this is that I got this on the side of the road for free. The owner said he had run it dry of oil and seized it. So I gave it a pull, and it actually did move. So I brought it home, figuring I had nothing to lose. What I did was I took off the spark plug, which I will disconnect now for safety reasons. Anyway, and then I dribbled a bit of oil down in here and pulled, and it loosened up, and nothing was broken. So I put it back together, put some oil in it. It started, so it ran. So now what I'm going to do is I made a little investment. I bought a carb seal air filter and spark plug kit for it. It was 12 bucks on Amazon, so $12 investment was worth it. I'll fix this up. If I can get it running pretty good, I'll give it to my dad for the summer. And now I'm going to take off the fuel tank, the carburetor, the air filter. We'll clean up the carburetor and switch out the seals in it and make sure it's got fresh gas on it, replace the spark plug, and this should be a mower that should last another few years at least. So thanks for joining me. Never done it before, so you're going to learn with me. So first thing to do is to remove the air filter here. And these usually get pretty dirty and pretty clogged up with junk. You can see this is kind of in need of a clean overall, which is nothing out of the ordinary. It was stored indoors though. That's one thing he did tell me. So, you know, it's not subject to a lot of that rust and that kind of stuff. Okay, you can see it's pretty dirty. This just comes apart. It just comes apart just like this. And the kit has a replacement filter, so we'll just pull this one out and get rid of it. Have a look inside the carb. Looks pretty decent, actually. Just looking inside the carb to see if you see any gummed up fuel in there. It's pretty clean. Not much in the way of debris in there either. That's a good sign. Okay, so now you can start taking the carb off. So it's pretty simple. It's just two bolts. One bolt there, one bolt here. And then we're pulling this tank off. And there's a little clip on here. And that's about it. It all just is held on by those two bolts. Okay, so now we're just going to pull the tank off here. Now one thing you want to watch for is there's a gasket here. This thing here is the gasket for the air filter. So I'm going to remove that just to make sure I don't drop it or lose it somewhere. And one thing you got to expect when you're, this thing's maybe 12, 15 years old, gaskets are the things you're going to break when you try and take things apart. So there is an O-ring in here that connects the fuel access essentially from the carburetor to the cylinder. So I'm going to try and go nice and easy and not wreck that gasket. There you go. Came out nice and easy. So you got this breather line hose that came off really nice, and now it's just connected by this little metal clip in here. You see that? I'm going to get a little pair of pliers to get that out. Okay. I'm going to do it left-handed so you can see it. There you go. So this clip, you see right here, that little steel pin, if you will, just clipped on right here. Okay, that controls essentially this thing is like an auto throttle that goes in and out depending on whether or not the engine's warm or cold. So it looks like I'm going to show you something here. going to zoom in. So here's the O-ring that I was talking about. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, you see right there? This O-ring and clip. I'm going to take that off, because I'd prefer to have that installed in the carb body before we slide it in. That way I know it's in there really well. So it was just attached to here. See that tube right there? So I removed it just so that I can clean it all up, make sure it's got a good seal. Okay, so now what we've got to do is there are 1, 2, 3, looks like there's 5 Phillips screws on this. We'll remove this hose and give it a clean too. 5 Phillips screws to remove, to lift the carb off the box. But before I do that, I'm just going to clean it up a little bit, because see how it's got all this grass and guck in there. So I'm just going to clean it up a little bit, just so that any debris doesn't fall into the tank once I take the carburetor off. I got carb cleaner here, but any good anti-grease spray will do a trick on it. This will also take some of the paint off, so if you're worried about that, I wouldn't do that. And that wasn't carb cleaner that I used, that was just a penetrating oil, so that'll do the trick. Any kind of solvent will clean it up nice. You can even see in there, it's not the cleanest. You can do better and clean that all up, and that will all add to the engine running much more smoothly. Okay, so now 5 Phillips screws off of there, and we're laughing. Okay, now here's a bit of a moment of truth. Now I have the replacement. There's actually a seal and a gasket in here, like a flapper, diaphragm, and a gasket. 2 different pieces that go between the carb and the tank, and they'll usually stick or tear as you pull it off. So if you don't have a replacement, go really easy on it, and you might not need to replace it. But I think that's part of the reason why these run so poorly eventually, is that flapper starts to get a lot of play in it, and doesn't work as efficiently as it should. So just be really cautious at this part in case you don't have a replacement. This one came off pretty clean. You can see it stuck onto here. See, the gasket actually stuck to the carb, and we'll just kind of really carefully peel this off. See, I don't know, yeah, this one's tearing, and you can see that's why I bought a replacement, because if you're doing yearly maintenance, or if you'd already been into the carb and you knew that the seal had been worked on, maybe you had a good chance of it not ripping, but other than that, you're pretty sure it's going to tear. You see that? Okay, so we won't be reusing this. Okay, there's a little spring in here that you want to watch for. Just make sure it doesn't pop off. This screen, one of the filters, that comes off. Just work it away. We're just going to clean that. You can feel some grit in it. So, and this screen we want to clean as well, and this should pop right off there as well. There we go. Okay, so now the thing to do is give this thing a good cleaning. You can feel lots of grit on it, and basically all these orifices, everything where fuel needs to go through, like here, we'll spray it all down with carb cleaner, and then clean up this gasket area as well, so that we can put the replacement gaskets on, and they'll have a nice good seal. You got to clean all that stuff off. Tank looks pretty clean. Tank is full of gas too, so I got to be careful what I do there. Probably be a good idea to empty the tank of gas so that you don't have to worry about it. But here we go, give it a clean. Okay, so I'm going to pour the gas out of the tank as well, just to have a look at it, see if it's clean or dirty, and also just to look inside the tank too and see if there's anything, you know, really nasty going on in the tank. I want to know about that too. Have a look at the gas and you can see there's quite a bit of particles in there, eh? I'll let that settle down too and see if there's water in there, because water could have been the cause of a lot of grief as well, but you can clearly see there's some dirt in that tank. So we'll have to flush that out too. So you can see it's actually, you know, it's not one seal. It kind of seems like one seal because they're stuck together, but it's actually two. One is this rubber diaphragm that goes on the bottom, because it's got that little flapper there, and the other is the gasket that goes on the top. So your replacement package, where did that go? Looks like this right here. So it's got the two diaphragms, spark plug, and a new filter. So we'll start to get those going. Old filter wasn't terrible. You can actually wash this thing too and it would come out clean, but just the package price of all these things together made it like an affordable thing to get, for me anyway, just my opinion. So here's the new sponge. Air filter, I guess. Pop that in there. Put this back in here and it should be set to go. There we go. So that'll be the last thing we put back on, and it'll be backwards. Upside down. There we go. Put it on there. Close this up like so, and she's set to go. So just take your time and clean it all up, especially the part like here where it's got a seal, right? Now I did look inside the tank and there's no major issue with rust or anything. It just needed to kind of be rinsed out. So I did rinse it out with some more gas, and even just cleaned it out just by sticking a rag in there and getting it around, and that does pick up some stuff for you. Just make sure you can get the rag out after. So we've got that cleaned out. We're going to get the diaphragm and the ring going, and we'll get the carb back on top of the fuel tank. One is the rubber diaphragm. That's this one. You can tell when you've got them in your hands, you can tell the difference. This one is much thinner and it's rubber. This one is thicker and it's a harder, thicker material. And this flapper, these flappers go on the bottom, right? They go right against the tank. So let's install them, and we'll try and line up the holes, and then very carefully put the tank back on it, line everything up, and screw in those 5 Phillips screws. Okay, so we put the pickup tube back on. Get a nice click there. We get this screen back on. And then this thing's ready to go back on the fuel tank. Okay, so here you got the, make sure my hands are clean here. Okay, so here got the 2 gaskets that came on, and this is the diaphragm. It's very sort of thin, light rubber composition, and this is the gasket. It's a little thicker, harder material. So just as long as you know you got the gasket, or sorry, the diaphragm on the bottom, gasket on top, you know you're in good shape. So we're going to set it up here and just try to line up the holes. The beauty about this shape is that it can only go on one way. The only real mistake you can make is putting the wrong one down first. So then the other challenge is just lining up the holes just like that. And we just slide the the carburetor back on top. Hope it all lines up semi-decently. We'll start getting some screws going back in, and this is set. This is where you just don't want to force it. And they all feel like they're going in pretty good. Yeah, they're going in pretty good. Just don't want to force it now because you just don't want to wreck that gasket, right? They're all going in pretty good. Start them all off by hand a little bit. I'll get the screwdriver on them. You can tell it's in really good shape. Now you're just getting down, and you don't want to monster tighten these. Just make it firm because you got plastic on steel here. That's never a good combination for breaking and snapping things. I was quite surprised how loose they were when I took them off. It's not that they were loose, it's just they were, let's just say, easy. Alright, so one last test here. And it feels pretty good. So I want you to have a good look now at all the particles that were in that gas. That can't be good. I washed the tank out as good as I could, but you know that's going to be a problem. That's the stuff that's going to clog up filters and cause some rough running. Okay, so I cleaned up the this O-ring and this kind of lock washer. I can wipe that lock washer off a little more. And I cleaned off the intake tube where they go into the cylinder. Because again, that was wanting to stay on the actual cylinder pipe, which would be fine, but I want to clean it all off, right? To get a better seal. So, and a lot of gunk came off of that stuff. Check it out. That's after having already cleaned it once. So in here, same thing. I gave it a good spray with carb cleaner in there, really clean the seat. So now the O-ring should just go in there and seat really nicely, and then the plastic clip should just clip right in, and it's ready to go back. Oopsie, wipe that down again. If you ever have issues with O-rings going on, just a bit of Vaseline or grease can help. This one feels nice and lubricated, but that's not going to be an issue. So it goes in there and seats. You just take a look and make sure it's seated really well. And this thing should just clip right in. Jeepers. Let's try that again. Yep. So that's a lot better. Now I'll clean off the tube where that gets installed, which is right here. Clean the outside of that off. Give it a bit of a carb cleaner spray as well, so that you know you're getting a good seal. Okay, so hopefully this will go back on well. First thing we want to do is hook the tank back onto that little steel clip here. That's going to be a little tricky, especially if it decides to come off. Okay, let's get it back on there. And this is hard to see without glasses. Okay, so that looks about right. All the springs are connected, the holes are going to line up, and now we're going to put the bolts back on. I think the next thing I'm going to do is the gasket on until I'm ready to refuel it, and then we'll put the air filter back on, remembering that air filter gasket, right? Put that thing on top. Pretty much only goes on one way, right? It's shaped a certain way that it can only fit one way into the tank. So That's a no-brainer, I hope. Yeah, they're different plugs. See, one is a 4106J, and the other is an RJ19LM, so I will not replace the plug. I'll keep the old plug in there, although it's a little dirty. If the thing runs and it runs okay, I can always clean that plug. Okay, so here goes nothing. I just put a little bit of gas on it. I don't even know if it's enough to... Oh, yeah, it's enough to get in there. Let's see what happens. Some smoke coming out of it, but that might be because of the oil that I poured down the cylinder, so I'm pretty happy with that. That is a running lawnmower that I got for 12 bucks basically, so hopefully you learned how to do it, and hopefully you know, you're not afraid to just get in there and try it. There's nothing to lose on this one because, well, there's 12 bucks to lose, but other than that, it was a free lawnmower. So if you get a chance, grab one, take it apart, see if you can make it work. And thanks for joining me. Just a quick addendum to this video, because I want you to look into this fuel here. And if you look at the outer edge of the fuel, you'll see a line, and then it's clear on the inside. If you look at the big picture, it's like you're seeing a big bubble, and that's exactly what it is. That is water. That whole fuel system was full of water. It was half water, half gas. Maybe you can give you a bit of a background, maybe you can see it better. You see the line on the fuel? Anyway, hopefully you can see it, but that was just full of water, and that would be another reason why your engine isn't going to run so great. See the big bubble in there?